Uh, uh, Let me say a few things. Normally I don't add my remarks at the end as my remarks, but on this occasion I think I should. And I think if you look back on all these a dozen programs onto this series, you find that putting them together, you find that the factors, certain common factors, operation. Rivers die, either because there will be pollution load, as for instance in the case of the Yamuna, or it could be not domestic speed but industrial pollutions, poisonous river, as in the case of Palar and Iyer in Tamil Nadu. Or because we are taking the water away from the river, diverting to water, or it could be because we are not letting the river flow, but we are constructing its channel by building embankments. These are two different factors which explain the decay of the rivers, the death of the rivers. It is for pollution, one can find, of course, the best course would be to prevent pollution from going into the river rather than into the river and then try to clean up the river. What we do is we kill the river and we try to revive it. We should try to revive it. This debate is going on. Ganga Action Plan Phase 1 has been under discussion, evaluation as to what we should do in Phase 2. I don't think final answers have been found yet. It's merely a question of setting a number of sewage plants. It also, there is alternatives are being discussed, and I think there is a certain realization now that lessons cannot be drawn at the Potomac and the Thames for application to the Hindu. So apply one. But if you look at conflicts over what you will find that very often what triggers a conflict is a trigger on the river. So long as the river is flowing free, and no one has interfered with it, and interstate or intercountry disputes do not develop. If you look at India, Bangladesh, the dispute originates from Puerto Rico. If you consider in Pakistan, the disputes arise out of, even though there is a water out of treaty, disputes arise because of a number of causes that we are building. If you take Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, the origin of the dispute lies in the fact that Karnataka started building a series of dams. The 1924 agreement covered Krishnaraj Sagar. But after that, they built Kabini and Haimavati and Harangi and Soti, and thus acquired complete control over the Kaveri water, so that Tamil Nadu became vulnerably dependent on Karnataka. That is the origin of that dispute. So you find that in most cases, these dams and structures, by altering geography, and altering power relations, altering control, create demand, create a conflict. Similarly, you have in Hirakud, you have now a dispute between agriculture and industries. To some extent, all this arises from excessive demand on the waters. As was mentioned, the lean part of the lean season in the Ganga, the flow has been determined as 55,000 cusic. That comes somewhere between April and May. Now the dispute was that in the leanest part of the lean season, Bangladesh wanted 55,000 cusics, India wanted 55,000 cusics. It didn't exist. Similarly, if you take Kaveri, the dispute today is the combined demand of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu will require 2 or 3 Kaveris. So essentially, this is competitive, unsustainable demand which creates this problem. But the difficulty is we can't confront this. We can't just discuss water. If to restrain, there is a number of things you can do. We can part of the dam building and part of the takes place because you want to provide water for irrigation. But irrigated agriculture is one of the most wasteful users of water in this country. There is much scope for bringing down that demand. The National Commission on the Integrated Water Resource Planning, which reported in 1999, said that the efficient utilization in irrigated agriculture is something like 25 to 40%. And the yield from irrigated agriculture, they project a very modest figure of 4 tons per hectare in 2050. Now, if the efficiency could be improved substantially, there is much scope for it. And if the yield from irrigated agriculture could be stepped up from 4 to 6 or 7, the requirement of water for agriculture would come down significantly. Similarly, if you take industry, both the problem of demand and the problem of pollution have only one answer, namely provide as little as possible for industry. Force them to use the same water 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, so that there is no, in fact, even India itself, some of the industries, if you go to CII or IIC, they will tell you that some of the industries are looking at a future when there will be zero effluent and zero net water budget. Now that is something, it's not easy. It's not going to be done tomorrow. But it is something which we need to do. Now if you do that, if you take domestic water, what we do is we take a norm, 140 liters per capita per day in urban areas, something like 70 or 80 in the rural areas. We multiply this by a projected future population, and we come up with astronomical figures which cannot be given, which cannot be given. That is the real problem. But the point is that if you look at the actual water requirement, it need not be 140. The Peter Gleick, who is an authority on the matter, has estimated he calls basic water requirement, BWR, as 50 liters per capita per day. Now, even if you double it, it should not be necessary to provide more than 100. Actually today, Delhi Jal Board is supplying an average of 240 or 250 LPCD. But it's supplying it in such a way that there are areas which use 500 LPCD and there are other areas which get 30 or less. So we don't need more water for Delhi. We don't need more project. We don't need Renuka project. What we need is to distribute the available water better and minimize losses. So if you do this on the domestic side, if you impose a severe discipline on industry, so that 90% of industrial water comes from the same water going over and over again, and if you improve substantially the agricultural use of water, then you will find that your total projected water demand till 2050 may not be as estimated at 900 or 1100 billion cubic meters, but maybe 700 or 800, in which case the whole problem changes. But these are all within the current parameters of development. Efficiency can achieve a certain amount. Beyond that, the demand for water is a derived demand. If you demand water because you want to use it for something, which supplies some other demand. You want steel, you want something else. So ultimately you have to question all that. That is why this question is the overall, the philosophical question of what is development. It's no longer avoided. In a sense, this water debate is an echo of the climate change debate. There also, seemingly, we are projecting impossible things, that emission cuts should be such. It just means, some people have argued that you need not only a low human economy, but also a low water economy. That really involves major changes, ideas of development and in lifestyle, which may seem completely our friend he raised the question of what to do and what is the roadmap, do and we go. It may seem extremely unrealistic, but But it is equally unrealistic to demand water that does not exist and kill our rivers, kill our aquifers. First, eventually the development will come to an end anyway. So this is an extremely difficult question, but this is something difficult we can no longer afford to ignore.